What's up, guys? Welcome back to another video on the Texas Rangers Report. And I just filmed a video on the Texas Rangers Report about the 5 biggest success stories for the Rangers this year. And since we are a team that's under 500, yes, we've had some success stories, but we've also had a bunch of failures. Let's just go with that. But before we get any further, I'm your number one source for all things Rangers on YouTube. So if you want to see more of my content, make sure to subscribe right now. But starting off, I think we have to say, oh, there goes my lighting again. But starting off, I think we have to say Nick Solak. This is a guy we thought could be the second baseman of the future. We traded Rougned Odor to the New York Yankees to clear a spot for Nick Solak a week before opening day. I'm not saying we shouldn't have traded Odor, okay? Odor is not really doing anything on the Yankees. I know the beat reporters for the Yankees like to say, oh, he's like a home run. I don't know. They like to hype him up a lot more than what Odor is actually doing. I mean, Odor is a great guy, but he's not that good, okay? Even with those short porches. But getting back to Nick Solak, we thought he would take a step or whatever, or get back to something similar to 2019. That was something we saw a glimpse in May, okay? I was like, okay, he could be the next Ian Kinsler. And then it started to cool off. Then he just started to struggle, and then the Rangers sent him down to AAA Round Rock, okay? The struggle went over an extended period of time. And then, I mean, of course, I shouldn't say of course, but he was in AAA maybe 2 weeks, a month, and then he was raking, okay? He's too good to not rake in AAA, but we called him up, and he's been producing ever since he's been back to the MLB. But the problem is we don't really know who's going to be the future at second base. I mean, it could be Andy Ibanez. We definitely don't think it's Nick Solak. Like, those guys will compete in spring training, but we're not set on any of those guys. I mean, the Rangers might just wait till Justin Foscue. But this was very disappointing because we thought Nick Solak could be a guy for the future, and then he just disappoints this year. And I don't know. I was very high on Nick Solak. He could still get it together. I think he's a good hitter. But when hitting is your only calling card and you're not really good at defense, that's a problem. Going on to the second guy on this list is David Dahl, okay? He's not even with the ball club anymore. That's how bad he struggled. The Texas Rangers signed him in the offseason, and I thought this was a pretty good signing, okay? David Dahl, former All-Star in 2019. He was All-Stars with Joey Gallo and Mike Minor and Hunter Pence in 2019. David Dahl has been a productive hitter when he's been healthy. It's just David Dahl, I don't think he was ever really healthy with the Rangers this year. And even when I guess he was kind of healthy, he never really produced. And the Rangers want to get looks at other players. He just didn't work out. And obviously the Rangers want to get looks at other players. And the problem with Dahl is that we're always worrying that if we play them in the outfield, at like left field, right field, center field, is he going to get injured tonight? And we don't really want that because we want Willie Calhoun playing DH, not the outfield. Like, I know Willie worked hard on being a left fielder, but we'd rather have David Dahl playing in the outfield instead of Willie Calhoun. But the worry was, will David Dahl get injured playing in the outfield? So he was never, I don't think he was ever fully healthy with the Rangers. Do I ever think he'll get back to his all-star form? No. Was there a Coors Field effect with David Dahl? Maybe a little bit. Although the stats still show that he was a good hitter outside of Coors Field. I just think that he's declined. He's just one of those guys that was good, but those injuries have really hampered with him, and if he was still the player that he was back in Colorado, Colorado wouldn't have non-tendered him. So I liked the signing. It was low risk, high reward, and it didn't pan out for the Rangers. He had 3 years left of arbitration, so it would have been nice if we had a player for the future. So I'm not faulting anybody. It just didn't work out with David Dahl. Third on this list is Willie Calhoun. Similar to Nick Solak, this was kind of Willie's year to really prove himself. He had a solid year in 2019, where he only was in the majors for half the year. He had like 20 bombs, maybe like 40 RBIs. I'm just going off the top of my head. I think those stats sound right. If you guys could put that in the comment section down below, I'd appreciate that. And that was only in half a year, and he was still raking down in AAA. And then you go to 2020. It's a COVID year. He just got hit by in the jaw by Julio Urias, so his confidence isn't completely there. And then he dealt with a hamstring injury, and it just wasn't a good year. And then when he was there, he wasn't really performing. And then we're like, okay, 2021, this is your time to prove it, Willie. And I mean, his spring training, he did all right in spring training. Went into the year, and he was hot for the first part. Started to cool down, and then he gets injured. It seems to be the reoccurring theme with Willie. Just like Nick Solak, their calling card is their hit tool. And if they're not hitting, then they're not really going to be producing to the organization. And he really wasn't hitting this year, and he hasn't been healthy. Just like Nick Solak, they're really only going to be playing like one position, two positions. I believe more in Willie than I do in Nick Solak, and hopefully Willie can turn it around. They're still going to give him a shot next spring training. I'd be shocked if they designated him or traded him. I don't think that's going to happen, even to Nick Solak. But this is just disappointing to see them underperform and then get injured, even for Nick Solak, because, well, Nick Solak never got injured, but it just takes away from their playing time to get developed. Number 4 on this list, this guy isn't in the organization anymore, but it's Kohi Arihara. I'm pretty sure we signed him on Christmas. He came over from Japan, and I was pretty excited about this deal. Kohi pitched pretty well over in Japan, but the problem about Korea, Japan, is basically like AAA for the major leagues. But the Rangers signed him for like $6 million for 2 years. But the Rangers signed him for like $6 million for 2 years. So I'm like, even if they get like a number 4 or 5 starter in the rotation, then it would be a pretty solid deal, because number 4 starters get like $10 million nowadays. So that'd be a pretty good bargain. But Kohi pitched well to start the year, then he struggled, and he actually was injured, and so he went on the 60-day IL, and I thought that his struggles were just because of his injury, although he was able to pitch later in the year. Who knows how healthy he really was? Who knows if he should have really been starting later in the year? But he struggled still, and then the Rangers designated him for assignment. I think the Rangers wanted to clear the 60-man spot for Matt Bush if he comes back this year. But actually, Kohi is still in the organization. I looked it up. He cleared waivers, and he's in AAA right now, so he's still in the organization. But I still think it's a little bit of a disappointment, because we think it's a guy who could be a number 4 or 5 starter in the rotation. He actually was a number 2 starter at the beginning of the year, and he was designated for assignment. He was our prize free agent, and given that he was designated for assignment, it's pretty disappointing. And I mean, you could say David Dahl was a prize free agent as well for the Rangers, designated for assignment. So pretty disappointing that both of our biggest free agents aren't even at the majors anymore. And last but not least, number 5 on this list has got to be Ronald Guzman. You guys can throw in somebody else right here, but I don't think this is too much of Goozy's fault. But I think he had a lot of hype going into spring training, coming out of spring training, and all too. He worked so hard to get to where he was in spring training. He was raking. He made the major league roster. Then he got injured. The Rangers put him in the outfield because they were dedicated to Nate Lowe. They gave up prospects for Nate Lowe. But Guzzi works his butt off, and that's why he was in the lineup in the outfield that day in Tampa Bay. And he ripped up his knee in the outfield. But it's just disappointing because who knows? Do I think he would have played well? I really don't. Just based off his past performances, and usually, like, if guys have good spring trainings, sometimes it carries over, sometimes it doesn't. Rougned Odor's never really carried over. But say if Guzzi did have something, now we never really get to know. But if the Rangers still believe in him, he'll be back next spring training if they believe in him. If not, it could have been Guzzi's last game with the Texas Rangers. So just going over it again, I had Nick Solak, David Dahl, Willie Calhoun, Kohi Arihara, and Ronald Guzman as my 5 most disappointing Texas Rangers this year. Thank you all for staying to the very end of the video. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up down below and subscribe to the Texas Rangers Report, become your #1 source on YouTube. And with that being said, I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.